Hello everyone, and welcome to the Whenever I Feel Like Doing an Awards show. I'm your host, ChrisTheFields, and today we're going over this 2021 year in video games. 2021 was a year that doesn't feel like it was all that impressive in terms of the grander scope in video game years, but looking back, there was a lot more than one might initially realize. I was able to play a lot this year, but I only have time to talk about the games that stood out to me the most. So stick around and see the awards these pillars of the year won from my perspective. The Best Art Style Award, Kena, Bridge of Spirits. It's often been said that video games are not about the graphics, and that is true. Above all, games are an interactive medium, and I think they should prioritize being engaging from an interactive angle above being pretty. But let's not mistake ourselves. Good visual presentation is important. If a game has an art style that is perceived to be visually impressive or interesting, it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for a person's enjoyment of it. Kena Bridge of Spirits is an example I would use to demonstrate this point. Kena is certainly fun to play, but from a mechanical standpoint, it doesn't do anything remarkable to set it apart. However, damn does this game look pretty. It's colorful, vibrant, and spectacularly animated. And I'm saying this despite playing this game on a PS4. Aside from a few frame rate dips, the previous gen version left me incredibly pleased. In fact, now I'm curious to see how much better this game must look on a PlayStation 5. Ember Lab, the developers behind this game, are an already established animation studio, and that prior experience absolutely shows. Playing this game almost felt like I was playing a theatrical CG movie. An incredibly impressive feat considering this is technically a debut indie game. The Best Combat Award, Metroid Dread. Metroid is a game series I wouldn't necessarily say is known for combat. The emphasis has always been more about the world, and the abilities you acquire aren't purely for combat applications. However, when Mercury Steam took over the series with Samus Returns, they injected a lot more challenge into the games. And now with Metroid Dread, they've taken that a step farther. Dread pulls absolutely zero punches. You will play this game to the best of your ability, or you will die. Despite that, it manages to walk the thin line of not being too hard, at least in my opinion. As long as you properly adapt to new enemy patterns, the game will always keep you stocked up and ready for the upcoming challenges. The combat truly shines in the boss encounters. They really push the difficulty of the game to its limits. Every single huge encounter was engaging. The attack patterns are almost always impossible to see coming the first time, but are clearly telegraphed. You will definitely need more than a few times to match up, but the finished result makes Samus look like an absolute badass at the peak of her capabilities. The final boss in particular officially ranks among my favorite final bosses in all of video games. Metroid Dread was a fun challenge I'm absolutely happy to have risen to. It provided me the most exhilarating action I played all year. The Best Story Award, Dungeon Encounters. Dungeon Encounters has, without a doubt, the boldest story I've ever seen from an RPG. When you hit up that new game button, you are greeted to these 4 sentences. And that's it. For reference, Dragon Quest on the NES had 8. But this incredibly brief, almost dismissive story synopsis is extremely indicative for the game you will play. This is a game that has the least amount of graphical user interface possible. Everything is function over form with this game. The map is a literal grid. Tiles are not labeled by icons, but rather hexadecimal numbers. Even the battle screen has no character models or special effects to speak of. The game boils down an RPG to the most minimal fundamental concepts. From the creators of the active time battle system pioneered by Final Fantasy IV, they've taken this style of gameplay to the logical extreme. But what makes the battle system so fun is how transparent the game is. Characters don't have a stat sheet. Their equipment stats are their attributes. Your broadsword will always do 30 points of physical damage. Maliere spells are the only group casting spells. Your armor just increases how many hits you can take. The battles emphasize speed, but also wise decision making. So if you want to play a solid turn-based RPG, but you don't want to risk having a scene you'll need to delicately explain to the person you live with,
nice bod you've got there.
Then this is the game for you. Wait. Why the hell did this win Best Story Award? The Mommy I Did It Myself Award, Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 4 was my introduction to the series, and it's still one of my favorite games of all time. But the thing about Resident Evil 4 is that it's also lightning in a bottle. It started a trend of shifting the series to more action set pieces, which didn't exactly go over well. So with Capcom failing to understand what made RE4 work, they instead took a new approach with Resident Evil 7. And it was clear they no longer needed to chase RE4. So that's exactly what they did. Resident Evil 8 is a direct homage to 4, but it took me by surprise just how much of an homage it was. You might even say blatant ripoff. All the other Resident Evil games I had played with a general idea of what I was in for. I knew nothing about Resident Evil 8 going in, other than a tall vampire lady everyone is horny for, and Chris Redfield is a bad guy? So I felt like I was genuinely playing a Resident Evil game for the first time. While I don't like it as much as 4, heck, I don't even like it as much as 7, Resident Evil 8 was a solid game, and one that I'm glad to have played, if only to say that I'm capable enough to finish a Resident Evil game by myself. The Best Character Award: Herlock Sholmes. Herlock Sholmes is the best character. No additional qualifier needed, he's just the best. Obviously based on the Sherlock Holmes stories, Herlock Sholmes is a reinterpretation of the classic figure. It's important to remember that Sholmes is written to be a comic relief character. You can be assured that whenever his trench coat is visible on screen, a good time is surely to be had. One of his hobbies is to kick down bolted doors. This is the chaos I aspire to achieve in my life. But could there be more to him than just being the butt of jokes? During one of the cases, you have to solve a murder that took place in a teleportation machine. And yes, Ace Attorney cases do get that ridiculous. But before the trial, he tells you that the notion of teleportation is scientifically impossible, presumably so that Ryunosuke understands he should not try to prove his client's machine works, and lose sight of the truth. It's rather sobering to hear Sholmes of all people say such a thing. Yet later in this same case, he puts forth the hypothesis that someone is able to create a device that reverses the effects of gravity. For a great detective, he certainly doesn't appear to be credible. Perhaps he is bluffing. But can that really be the case? For in the dense jungle of logic and reasoning, he is the king of beasts! The man is well decorated. His long career of solving mysteries has made him famous the world over. Surely that couldn't be achieved by a man that simply follows his own whims. Well, what if it wasn't? Almost every one of Sholmes' deductions during the games turns out to be true, but incredibly vague. I posit that during his dances of deduction, Sholmes purposely gets the details of the explanation wrong, so that Ryunosuke and Susato can be involved in actually understanding the breakdown of the case, making them better prepared for their eventual bouts in court. Perhaps before that, he adopted his wild persona so that any potential suspects would be quick to drop their guard, falling for the ruse of false security. And yet the man has eaten soap, just to find out what would happen. It almost makes you wonder if the curse of bearing a mind of a genius is to also house the mind of a fool. Sholmes isn't going to be recognized for much more than haha funny detective man antics, but does a nominee for a Best Character Award need to be someone with extreme nuance? Anything could be the makings of a good character, but only the best are Herlock Sholmes. The Best Mario Party Game Award: Mario Party Superstars.
This was it! This is all we wanted from Mario Party for years! A game that brings the modern presentation back to the boards where friends can screw each other over in glorious ways! And we can do it all online! And the netcode is actually kind of decent! They almost did it on the 3DS, but still managed to screw it up! Playing this game is like seeing nature healing, but in the form of a video game series!
It almost feels like cheating to say that Mario Party Superstars is the best Mario Party game, because its identity is so intrinsically linked to already existing games in the series. Everything that makes this game good entirely owes itself to the best parts of every Mario Party before it. There is nary an original bone in this skeleton, but every bone is so polished that we have a very pretty skeleton. Okay, I think I lost the analogy. The point is that Mario Party Superstars took everything about what made the games of the past work so well, and even changed what didn't for a better experience. They actually took the 100 best minigames from the past. I haven't played all of them, even with my extensive time with the game, but I honestly think there isn't a single dud here. It's not exactly perfect as of now. 5 boards to play on is fine, but I personally think that only Spaceland and Horrorland are the only fun ones to play on. Regardless, Mario Party Superstars is a great third step to achieve the peak party dominance this series used to have. I hope that ND Cube took the development of this game seriously, and actually studied why these games are so beloved in the first place. Because if all the next Mario Party does is take the framework of Superstars, but makes it completely original, then I'll be very optimistic for the future of this series. The I'm going to cry my goddamn eyes out award. Before Your Eyes. Okay, for real. If you've never heard of this game before, like, you're perfect. Go out and get this game right now. All you need is webcam. I guess you don't technically need a webcam to play it, but you should. You should have a webcam if you're playing this game. Because the only thing I'll say about it, because I don't want to say anything more about it than I need to, is you control the game by blinking, and every time you blink, you jump forward a little bit in this person's life that you're playing as. It's an incredible game. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say about it. You should just play it, because it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, you might find it Steam sale right now, might be a few dollars off. Who knows? Get this game. Get this game because it's incredible. Even if it's not on sale, just get it because it's amazing. Play it. The Worth the Wait Award. Psychonauts 2. I can't remember when or how I first found out about Psychonauts, but I fell in love with the game at first blush. But boy was I terrified for Psychonauts 2. It felt like everything that could go wrong with game development short of a project being cancelled went wrong with Psychonauts 2. I was absolutely worried that if the game managed to come out, the series would truly be left in obscurity. And I'm so happy to say that worry was entirely misplaced. Despite being 16 years removed from the original game, Psychonauts 2 didn't miss a beat. It perfectly understands its tone and purpose, and expands the world in the process. It's properly refined to the point that I'm willing to call Psychonauts 2 one of the best 3D platformers out there, ready to compete with Nintendo's best of them. The only game that is truly like Psychonauts 2 is Psychonauts 1, and while I think I prefer the original game more, I'm happy to say that both games stand together, hand in hand as equals. Psychonauts 2 is just as creative as the first game, perhaps more so. The visual style and level design concepts are so far beyond what the original Xbox could have ever dreamed of, and it makes me so happy that people are looking at this game and giving it the credit it deserves. And the thing is that it needed to take Psychonauts 2 this long in order for its recognition to be had. Microsoft's acquisition of Double Fine meant that the team was able to re-include the content they originally planned to cut. And frankly, I couldn't imagine a Psychonauts 2 that was compromised from the version I had played. And if getting a game this good meant all I had to do was be patient and let it come out when it was ready, then the wait will always be worth it. The Game of the Year. Tales of Arise. Going into the year, I would say that Tales of Arise was the game I was most looking forward to playing. So when I was able to eventually get my hands on it, I just devoured it. When I initially finished it, I acknowledged the game had some pretty big problems, but I enjoyed what I had played regardless. The game had properly met my expectations. Not exceeding them, not delivering in ways I wasn't expecting, but my excitement in comparison to what I got was adequately judged. Now that the dust had time to settle, I think I might have given the game a little too much credit despite my balanced verdict. So you may be asking why I still call it my Game of the Year. Do I need a reason? It's no secret that the JRPG is my favorite genre of video games, and I can get down with just about any game using that framework. I had an absolutely comfy time playing Tales of Arise, in spite of the fact that the game is quite challenging. The battles were fast, chaotic, and fun. I quite enjoyed the story, despite it lacking nuance and completely pooping its pants by the second half, and the post-game content kept me invested to come back and round out pretty much everything else the game had to offer. Arise has one of, if not my favorite cast of party members in the series. I like how not one of the characters joins the group out of 100% trust in each other's ambitions. Each one has their own motivations, but is still mature enough to work together with everyone else, until they just naturally become friends by the end of the game after spending so long with each other. It's like Persona 3. Sort of. Shoutouts especially to Alphen and Shion, who have a really great dynamic that blossoms into a convincing, albeit frustratingly sheepish romance. Look at these two bozos being happy together. I love them. I don't think anything in this series can truly eclipse my love of Symphonia, since that was absolutely core for me developing my tastes in video games. That being said, Arise is probably my second favorite game in the series. Although I'm not sure I would die on that hill. I have to play Abyss and Vesperia again in the near future to make a definitive call. Perhaps someday, after a bit more reflection, the game may fall from favor. But for right now, it is my personal Game of the Year for this 2021.